Hello, I'm Clive Carroll and I'm just back from part one of my coastal walk of Great Britain. It began on the 2nd of February 2020 and here's a short rundown of how it all went. My mate Roger drove my wife and me out to the coast and I was really touched that three friends had also driven up to Southwold to wish us luck. My wife came out walking for the first day from the lighthouse up to Hopton-on-Sea. It was all pretty exciting despite the rain lashing down for the first couple of hours. There was a lot of sand walking and you could really see coastal erosion in action. At times it felt like we were in a scene from Tatooine in Star Wars. Occasionally there was no access to the beach, so we had to hop up onto the cliffs. Typically town names aren't pronounced how you'd read them, and I thought we'd stopped in Lowestoft for a break, but it turns out they call it Lowestoft. By the time we'd covered about 12 miles, my calf muscles had definitely let me know they existed. We made it to Hopton before dark, and we both slept like logs that night. The next morning, Lily drove me back out to Hopton in Norfolk, and I was now on my own. Hopton to Waxham was another 20-mile day. It was sunny, and as I walked to the end of a tree-lined path, I was greeted by this view. The first town I passed was Galston-on-Sea, and it was my first sighting of an RNLI station. Galston kind of morphed into Great Yarmouth, and as I crossed this bridge, I only caught a glimpse of the town. Heading north along the seafront, the famous pier was already behind me, and I spent hours walking on terrain like this. I soon discovered that beach walking means you're always leaning ever so slightly to one side, and although cliff walking is generally more level, it's probably going to be windier. So at times it felt like it was a case of choose your poison. I took a photo of the RNLI station at Caister, and you can just make out the volunteer posing with a coffee cup through the window. I like their motto there, Caister men never turn back. By day 3, I started to realise that 20 miles a day was a little insane, but hey-ho. On my way up to Chroma, I discovered Happisburgh, which is pronounced Happisburgh, and that hundreds of dogs take their owners for walks every day on the coast. Here's their lighthouse, and here's a local taking his tractor out for a morning spin. At about 4 o'clock, I came across this sign, and I thought, well, let's have a look then. I wasn't expecting this, and I have to say this was definitely the highlight of the day. At a place called Bactin, I bumped into this guy and his dog. They're called Bob and Ruby Jarvis. It was pretty freezing and windy, and as he passed, he just said one phrase to me that I thought was hilarious. He said, "Only mad dogs and Englishmen would be out in this weather, boy." We got chatting, and I told him why I was out there. He gave me £5 and said he'd like it to go to HelpMusiciansUK, and I was really touched. There was a pretty strong headwind on my way up to Chroma, which I tried to capture in this video. I passed through a few villages, and at Trimingham I noticed that the shanty supergroup Fisherman's Friend were coming to town. It's great that they're out there bringing shanties to the masses, right? After about 40,000 steps that day, I'd finally reached Chroma Lighthouse and I was staying nearby. My friend came to join me because for the next day and a half he was going to walk with me too. That night in Chroma, Seamus Brady turned up and he brought a few guitars for me to play from the John Pearce collection. There was a really great Froggy Bottom guitar there and also a pre-war Martin, which I believe was made from Koa. It was pretty stunning. Kev and I stepped out bright and early from Chroma the following morning, and today's destination was Wells next to sea. What a hero this guy was. I also discovered that woolly mammoths were big news here 30,000 years ago. And after about 5 miles, it was all going very well. and then we thought we'd take a picture with Sheringham in the background. Then the coastal walk took us to this. All right then, let me put this another way. Here's what it's like to walk on shingle for an hour and a half solid. Later on that day we passed through Blakeney, Morstan and Stiffkey, which I discovered is pronounced Stucky. And by the time we reached Wells next to sea, it was definitely time for a pint. Day 5 was Wells to Hunstanton, which is of course pronounced Hunstanton. Kev did half a day's walking with me, and pretty soon we were out at Holcombe Beach. It was a beautiful morning, and I discovered that Norfolk has a hill. Here it is in all its glory. A hill. Saw some classic Norfolk coastal village views like this, and before we knew it, it was time for Kev to head off to collect his car and go home. I took in the Burnhams and the Brancasters and the Norfolk coastal path. People made life a lot easier with large sections of pathway like this. The Norfolk coast is absolutely teeming with bird life. As well as the many dozens of species, there are also lots of camera lenses peering out of the hedges. And, well, here's a short bird life clip from somewhere near Holme next to sea. When I reached Hunstanton, I saw my first open RNLI station. I walked up to them, told them what I was up to, had a chat for a while, and they gave me a little tour, including a peek at one of their favourite pieces, the hovercraft. I thanked them and drifted into Hunstanton past the golf course and onto the beach. The cliffs were pretty staggering. They're made up of 3 distinctive formations. The bottom orange part is called the Carstone Formation. The red rock is actually chalk, coloured from iron pigments, and it's called the Hunstanton Formation, though it's probably the Hunstanton Formation. And the white part at the top there is called Ferriby chalk, and apparently this section is made up of skeletal remains of planktonic algae. Nice. The whole thing is rich in fossils like ammonites and belemnites. Something else I learnt is that Hunstanton is nicknamed Sunny Honey, and believe it or not, you can watch the sun set in the west over the sea. The final day included a ton of beach walking. I saw someone texting on a horse, very Norfolk. I passed through a beautiful village called Wolferton, which has a famous ex-railway station used by the royal family for their journeys to Sandringham Palace. And I walked along the roads past the estate for a while, and however, it ended up being more like 20 miles because I realised after a while I'd lost my hat, and it was a little upsetting because my mother had made it for me. My mother's from County Clare in Ireland, and before heading off to a tour in Canada years ago, she created a kind of Irish Quebecois phrase that reads, "La feck it." So after about 2 hours retracing my steps, I found it in a field, and from now on, this hat is just going to stay at home. Luckily, before dark, I'd reached King's Lynn, where my wife was waiting to take me home. Well, that's about it. Thanks very much for watching. My next leg starts on the 23rd of February, where I'll be walking from King's Lynn up the east coast of England to the Humber Bridge. And if you'd like to donate to RNLI or Help Musicians UK, all of those links are in the description box below. Thanks for watching.